down that camera and strap in. It's time for a new episode of TogChat Live. It's an open mic night for photographers. Get ready for 60 minutes of your photography questions in real time with answers from your host, Joe Edelman.
No sound. You mean you guys want to hear me? Why do you want to hear me? I think it would have been a whole lot more fun if you were just reading my lips, because then I could have talked about pretty much whatever I want to talk about. In that 30 seconds that there was no audio, you guys missed the most epic Sony A9 rant ever. So go back, read my lips, and you can figure out what I was saying about the Sony A9. But anyway, gang, bottom line, it is Wednesday. It's open mic night. So that means we've got 60 minutes of your questions, my answers. Anything, business, lighting, camera techniques, post-production, you name it. So if you've got a question, get it in that chat window, or excuse me, not in the chat window. Get that URL that's in the chat window. It's tog.chat/question, and get your question in the queue so that I can do my best to get you an answer before the show is over. So it is great to see all you guys here as usual. James Parrish is here, Steven's here, Clavan, Ricky, Sean, Swad's here, Michael, James Lewis is here, Chuck, Robert Bechtel, Doug Thompson, Steve, Carl, Mitch, tons of you guys. D. Kelly's here. Awesome. It is really great to see you guys. Tom, thank you all for checking in tonight for another 60-minute talk chat. So for those of you that are watching live, please take a second, let your photography friends know that we are here. Tell them that we're streaming live right now on YouTube. So this is their opportunity. If they've got questions, or if they just want to find out who that crazy guy Edelman is, by all means. In fact, some of you might want to let your buddies know to check in for the very first question I'm going to answer tonight, because I'll guarantee you I'm probably going to piss some people off. So get ready, okay? And hey, listen, if you're listening to the TogChat podcast, I'm not live. Well, I mean, I hope I'm still living, but please do tell your photography friends about this cool new podcast that you found. And be sure, guys, download the weekly podcast every Friday so that you have some motivational listening while you're shooting over the weekend. And if you are watching TogChat Live on YouTube, remember, I'll be back on Monday with photo news and reviews and an open mic Q&A night. So that's right, TogChat is changing a little bit. We're going back to one night a week. So you ready, everybody? Yeah, I know. So here's the thing. Full disclosure, guys, I've been completely honest with all of you, my faithful followers, pretty much from the get-go about the decisions I make and why I do what I'm doing on here. Obviously, TogChat has been a big experiment from the get-go. The whole idea with TogChat is to have an opportunity to interact with you guys live, real time, which, by the way, is something that YouTube is aggressively encouraging its creators to do. And I'm a big fan of supporting what YouTube wants to try and do, because it makes sense and they've got a lot more data than I do. So I've been having a lot of fun with these, but here's the thing. Doing them 3 nights a week with the photo reviews on Monday and the Q&A on Wednesday and the marketing on Thursday, I'm sure you guys can imagine, number one, it's quite a bit of work on my time. Also, you've all seen that while I've been learning all of this live stream stuff and really trying to get the quality up, it has impacted the ability to be able to put out the tutorials on a weekly basis. So here's the bottom line. I do a live stream. We'll have, if we're lucky, at some point about 180 to 200 people here tonight. Right now there's about 75 people watching TogChat. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, this TogChat will get about 2,000 views. I put out a video this past Saturday night, so it's been out less than a week. That video already has over 4,000 views. So at the end of the day, the numbers are pretty clear. People like the tutorials. I've got some very loyal followers and you guys that like the live. So the Monday night show is going to be a combination of the photo reviews, which we've been doing. I'll probably be doing somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 5 photos a week. And then it's also going to be a Q&A night like we're doing tonight. So it's going to be kind of a half and half. The one that's disappearing are the marketing talk chats. Now, for those of you that are dying to see part 2 of Google Analytics, don't panic. Next Thursday, I'm still doing a live talk chat to do Google Analytics part 2. And I will be doing more marketing videos. It's just that I'm going to do them as tutorials and I'll continue to add them to the marketing playlist. So don't worry, you're still going to get lots of information from me, but I'm going to go back to obviously doing what people clearly really want to watch. And that is the tutorials. And I mean, I get it. The tutorials are shorter, they're quicker, they're much more focused. There's a lot of energy packed into a really, really short punch. So we're still going to do both, but that's pretty much how things are going to line up. So for those of you that maybe like haven't been paying attention or for some crazy reason you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel yet, please make sure that you watch the new video that just came out this past weekend. It's about simple white background lighting techniques with a softbox or an octodome as your background. Okay? Great for working in tight spaces. Great for honestly saving money and working with limited amounts of equipment. So not only does it show you some simple techniques for doing that, which a lot of people have done before, but it also shows you a really, really easy and extremely consistent way to set proper exposure using a softbox as your background. No TTL crap, no relying on the camera, hoping that the camera gets it right. But it's old school and it's simple and it's basic and it works really well. And for those of you that maybe like to be able to read, I don't know, does anybody read anymore? I don't read. Reading takes too much time. But for those of you that maybe like to read, make sure you visit my website. If you go to www.joeedelman.com, all of my videos, a couple days after they go live on YouTube, are turned into blog articles, and you can read the article. You can even tweet the best Joe quotes right from the article. You'll see all the screen captures and everything that's there. So please check it out. And there's stuff on the website that you can't get in the videos. For starters, you can always get my podcast on the website. They're listed here in reverse order, so the latest one will always be the first one that comes up. And better yet, you can click on the Learn from Joe section. And this section is going to keep you up to date on when all the TogChats are. You can see like coming up in June. There's the marketing for photographers, which is going to be Google Analytics Part 2 that I promised all of you. The Patreon Zoom chats in July. You guys can see I'm going to be up in Amherst, Massachusetts at the NECCC Photography Conference. I've spoken there before. It's a great conference. I hope to see a lot of you there. But starting next week, you're going to want to bookmark this section. I'm going to be doing something that nobody else is doing right now, and that is photography workshops online. And I don't mean like where you interact with a bunch of web pages and no. I mean like one-on-one interactive workshops, small groups. I shouldn't say one-on-one, 5 people. But basically it'll be like attending a workshop with me. So you could be in Australia while I'm in Allentown, Pennsylvania. You're going to watch me do a short lecture, do a demo, and then you in your shooting space, whether it's your living room, whether it's your garage, whether it's your studio, you're going to turn around and you're going to try and replicate the same things that I'm showing you. We're going to look at your results, share them back and forth, screen to screen, and I'm going to help you improve what you're doing. And we do it. The technology is actually super, super simple. All you need is a computer that's got a webcam and a microphone. And it can be a built-in webcam and a built-in microphone. You don't need any fancy technology. So all that information is going to be going live next week. And here's the best part. Since I don't have to travel to Australia to do that workshop, it is a ton cheaper than attending face-to-face in-person workshops. Okay? So let's get on with some of the important stuff tonight, all right, shall we? So I've been sharing with you guys the last couple weeks some news from my friends over at DIYphotography.net. So if you haven't been living under a rock today, you probably heard that we now have a brand new sub $1,000 drone, $500. It's actually just under $500 if I'm not mistaken. It's DJI's new Spark drone. Everybody's all excited. Oh, now I got to go get me a drone because they're finally affordable. You know, I'll be honest with you guys. In my opinion, I think this is a bad idea. Now, they're going to sell a ton of these. Let's be clear, okay? You know, companies got to make money. They got to develop products that people are going to jump all over and sell. But this is basically a 1080p 30 frame per second video camera. So, and it's not as stable. It's got a much simpler basic gimbal. So you don't have as stable an image as you do with your bigger drones, number one. Because believe me, there is some value to having some size in the weight. Not to mention the better gimbals are going to stabilize the camera better. But, you know, we're at a point now where the world's going 4K. So whether you like it or not, whether you like 60 frames per second or not, and I know for a lot of you, all that talk about 4K, 1080p, 60 frames, 30 frames, 24 frames, that's Greek. I got it. But here's the thing, gang. If you're serious about photography, and if you're planning to do photography for any period of time, you better learn this stuff. Because you're going to find that this video information that everybody's talking about, it's actually going to impact the way you shoot stills pretty damn soon. So I would encourage you to at least get your head wrapped around that information. So the problem here is, I mean, these are cool. I want to be really clear. I think they're neat. If I had one to play with and I didn't have to spend the $500, DJI, send it over. I'll make a video. But at the end of the day, it's really limited. And historically, we're kind of reaching that turning point where everybody's moving to 4K. So 4K is basically 4 times the pixel size of 1080p. And it routinely will shoot it up to 60 frames per second as a standard frame rate. So it's almost like you're buying used technology in a new shape is kind of what it comes down to. So, you know, it's one of those things. Is it cool? Is it fun? Is it going to be, it's going to be great for vloggers. In fact, I see Casey Neistat's already got a video out with it. You know, it's definitely, it's a great vlogging tool. But at the end of the day, if you're serious about putting out high-end stuff, so for instance, some of you wedding photographers will look at this and say, finally, I can add drone shots to my weddings. I'll be honest, I'd spend the extra $500 and get a 4K camera. I mean, let's be clear, from a business standpoint, if you cannot clearly see a way to make that $500 back, then you shouldn't be buying the drone in the first place. It's a toy, which means bad business. So come on. If you can make the $500 back, you can make the $1,000 back. Buy a 4K drone, and that makes a whole lot more sense. Even if you're not ready to output your videos in 4K. And I'm doing the same thing. You're watching me being shot with a 4K camera. You're seeing it at 1080p. I'm still outputting. I know that, like, I know Tony and Chelsea, they're doing 4K video feeds now. That's great. Here's the joke behind that. It's cool that they're doing it. They can claim that they're the first to do it. Almost none of you watch it. Almost nobody watches their 4K feed. So the simple statistics are that in general, the internet is not watching 4K feeds yet. So it's one of those things. It's good to get the technology wrapped around, or get your head wrapped around that technology and get to know it. But people aren't watching 4K feeds yet. So I'm using 4K cameras, but I'm down-resing to 1080p. And what that does for me, when I shoot my tutorials for you guys, it allows me to basically do one camera shot, but turn it into 4 different camera shots. I can do 4 different angles from that one because I can crop down to a quarter of the frame, and then it's at 1080p. So I'm not actually enlarging anything at that point. So obviously that's been the big news story of the day. And if we scroll down, we take a quick look at their homepage. Shocker. All those people that went out and bought that brand new Pro Photo, battery's bad. Sucks to be them. That's what you get for spending so much money, right? There's some other cool stuff on here. I noticed if we went back a little ways, what was this other article that I saw that I thought was kind of pretty. Oh, that's the big one. Photokina starting next year. Photokina is going to be annual. So one of my big goals for 2018, I've never been to Photokina. It's in Cologne, Germany. My big goal for next year is to get to Photokina. I've already got a couple companies on the hook that, I don't know, they're going to pay my way, but they're at least going to make it a lot more affordable and give me a better reason to go. So I definitely intend to be there. I don't know if I'll make it back every year, but it is the biggest of the big. So it's definitely one that I would, love to see and love to attend. Here's an article. Somebody did a story and a video about stop trying to pose your subjects and direct them. Gosh, where have we heard that before? Like for years now. In fact, there's a 6-year-old video on my website that's about the same thing. So that's good advice. So anyway, lots of cool stuff on there. If you're not reading DIYphotography.net or at least checking it out from time to time, I would definitely encourage you to do that. Really good stuff there that those guys are putting out. Okay, so here we go. Let's switch back and get into the questions, the important stuff, the stuff that you guys really want to know about, right? So I've got my first question. Strap in on this one. I am going to do my best to not do a rant here. The question comes from Thomas in Louisville, Kentucky. His question is, I recently did a shoot with a model in the woods at dusk, and we used colored smoke bombs, and I lit this with 5 speedlights. It turned out awesome. But not even a week later, 2 other photographers in his area went out and they did essentially the same thing and started posting it all over social media like it was their idea. Thomas's question is, do I have any recourse? Can I make them remove the photos? He goes on to say, it was my idea. Why are people so damn disrespectful? Well, now, so summary version. Thomas had what sounds like a cool idea. Model, smoke bombs, a lot of light. So that could be really cool. He doesn't mention if he used gels or not. Really thrilled with the way the shot turned out. He's super happy. But somebody basically took his idea and started posting all over. And full disclosure, I followed the link to Thomas's page, looked at his picture, and then did a little bit of research and found one of the other 2 photographers that did a similar picture. Turns out that photographer also has a bigger social media following, so they're getting a lot more attention for theirs. So Thomas, here's the bad news. And I hope that you will understand that what I'm trying to do here for you is give you a little bit of tough love and teach you a lesson, okay? Actually, let's take your questions. Do I have any recourse? Can I make them remove the photos? Short answer, no and no. My advice to all this stuff, stop your damn whining. Get over it. Who cares? First of all, Thomas, it wasn't your idea. Models in the woods with smoke bombs and lights and gels. You really think you're the first person that ever did that? Maybe you're the first person in Louisville, Kentucky that ever did that, but so what? Louisville, Kentucky's in the middle of freaking nowhere. Makes sense you might not be the first person to do it, but it's been done. From a practical standpoint, there is no such thing as an original idea. There simply isn't. That's not pessimistic. That's not the glass is half empty. No, that is simply the reality of the fact that as a human being, we are influenced by everything that we experience. And we take ideas from that and we build on that. So, and gang, here's the other piece. And Thomas, I'm sorry to tell you this, but the other guy that I found, his version's 10 times better than yours, man. So I think really where you're kind of stinging a little bit here, Thomas, is you tried something and you went big. And you know what? I give you credit, man. Go big or go home. And you went big. 5 lights, a lot of smoke in yours. But it was a little chaotic. His is pretty damn sharp, man. And I would bet that he used fewer than 5 lights, and I don't think he used nearly as many smoke bombs. Or if he did, he shot with different timing than what you did. But his shot's better. It's just simply better. So, gang, if you're taking pictures for fame, internet fame, give it up. Go away. And I see this a lot. I see this a lot lately. People whining about people copying stuff. It's actually the second time this came up today. I won't drop any names. Stop whining. Do your thing and do it well and do it better than anybody else. And you'll be recognized for that. But it's not about being the best. It's not about being better than the next guy. Nobody picks up again. And that's the irony. What is it? Same part of the country, Midwest. Sal Sincata with his photo contest thing. His excuse was, well, I'm competitive. Dude, it's your own damn contest. You're teaching half the world. At least you want to teach half the world because you want them to come to your photo event. Get out of the damn contest. It's just obnoxious. Why do you have to win a contest? Why do you have to win a contest? You don't. Why do you have to be the best? Not a single person here picked up a camera for the very first time, and before they ever pressed the button, purchased that camera and bought it and said, I want to be the best photographer in the world. Done. And it's pretty much a fact that anybody that says, I want to be the best, and that's their reason for doing what they do, usually fails. They may become infamous, but infamous is not good. So, Thomas, really sorry, but that's what it is. Hey, Mitch, we'll get to the next question when I'm ready. Mitch, I'm sorry that you don't particularly like this question, but too bad, okay? So it's an important one, and it's one that people need to get their heads wrapped around. All right, next up, we'll move on because apparently Mitch doesn't like my choice of questions tonight. So I got a question here from Bart. Google Analytics with your KISS advice in mind. So if Mitch doesn't like that question, he's not going to like this one because this one's not about photography. This is about web work, okay? Google Analytics with your KISS advice in mind. I'm building a single page 12 photo portfolio website. Is this a good idea for Google Analytics? All entry and exit pages will always be index.html, or is a 3 to 5 page website better or preferred? Short answer on this one, Bart. It's actually pretty simple. The more URLs that you have in your website with legitimate content on those URLs, so we're talking 300 words minimum, the better you're going to stand a good chance of being found from an SEO standpoint. But if all of your content is on the same URL, that's going to give you more words, but it's definitely not going to give you a lot of bang for your buck in terms of SEO. But now that I gave you that answer, Bart, the thing that you have to kind of really take a look at is what kind of work are you doing? What are your goals in terms of where your client's going to come from? And that's really going to dictate how important is SEO to you. One of the things that I've talked about a lot in the marketing talk chats, and I even talk about it in my marketing series of videos on YouTube, SEO is always going to be important. So, be careful here. This is one of those statements where I'm kind of talking in two directions, all right? SEO is always going to be important, but for photographers especially, there are a lot of business models where SEO is not going to win the game. You're going to win by a really, really strong social media presence and by really, really effective social media. So, I always explain to people in a perfect world, you don't want to completely disregard SEO in any terms. But at the same time, sometimes it's okay to make the choice to kind of ignore it if you are working with a business model where you can really drive your business with social media. That's kind of how I would encourage you to look at that. So Esben has a question here. He's considering if he should buy a screen calibration tool. The reason is that he has a series of photos that he's in the process of editing, and he has a lot of trouble finding a skin tone that he thinks looks right. He has he's returned the photos and tweaked the skin, even after he was first satisfied with the look. Then after the last Patreon chat where I looked at one of his photos and I made a comment that the skid was a tad pinkish, now he's confident that what he's looking at on his screen is correct and starts to second guess his decisions regarding colors and tones. So we'd like to eliminate that doubt and be confident with what he sees and what he gets. So, for all the engineers in the group, they're going to want to go right away to the idea of use a calibration tool. So MIB Pro 3030, my audio is not out of sync. That happens sometimes on live streams on YouTube, and that's an issue of you and your bandwidth and whatever device you are watching it in. So sorry, it's not me, but I've got a really, really healthy stream going out now. Everything is synced. There's no delay. So it's on your end, okay? So, Esben, before you spend that money, I do remember your picture that we looked at, and it wasn't like super pink. It just is a tad pink. My first advice to you would be start making it a point to, when you're done working on the photo on your computer screen, go look at it on your phone. Like, use Dropbox. Upload it to Dropbox and then download it and look at it on your phone. Maybe look on another computer. A lot of households have more than one computer in the house, or even on a friend's computer. Do that exercise for a little while just to see what you're seeing on various devices. I will tell you that Apple iDevices, iPhones, iPads, things like that, they maintain color correction really, really, really well. So they're not perfect, but by all means, I would feel very confident if I worked on an image, pulled it up on an iDevice, and it was looking pretty good. So there's definitely, kind of some comfort that can be found in looking at images on an iDevice. But before you run out and do the calibration thing, in a perfect world, sure, you calibrate everything. But I'll be perfectly honest with you. I don't calibrate my monitors nearly as often as what the quote-unquote industry standards are. I don't need to. I'm not photographing artwork where I have to reproduce that artwork perfectly. The work that I do is subjective, as is the image that you've shot that I looked at in the Patreon chat. So, and which, by the way, gang, for those of you that are not familiar with Patreon, the folks that support what I'm doing on Patreon, they have the ability to tune in every Friday night for a Patreon Zoom chat. And basically, we all get to interact via video and webcams. So this past Friday, as an example, we took some time and we were looking at a couple of the members' photographs, doing some Photoshop tweaks on them, things like that. So when Esben's referring to Patreon, that's how I was looking at his picture. So I would start there, Esben. Start comparing your images on a couple different devices first to see if you're really having a problem. But just based on the way you're describing it in this this question, please be careful about striving for perfect, because there is no perfect. It's subjective. The reason why the pink stood out so much in that shot is because the young man's skin was so pale. And of course, because you had a lot of blue in it, okay? So, Troy Hall, I'm not even going to answer that question. You can type it into the chat, but guys, listen, I don't know how many times to tell you this. I'm not going to answer your questions out of chat, okay? I'm just not. So Tony and Chelsea don't. A lot of other people don't. Joe doesn't. Type it in and I'll answer your questions, okay? So let's see here. Ken Vincent, you often make the point that you spend several hours working with a subject. How can I get great expressions and images when working in a corporate setting of 30 people where I may only get 5 minutes with each person? Well, that's practice, Ken. The phrase that I use, I call it developing your mojo. Peter Hurley has his little app that you can buy, all the Hurleyisms, which, by the way, you want to sound like an idiot? Buy Peter Hurley's app and then say what Peter Hurley says. Because most people that say what Peter Hurley says are going to look like morons doing that. And that's no disrespect to Peter Hurley. Peter Hurley is a larger-than-life personality. So what works for him, is not necessarily going to work for the next person, okay? So he's got a certain mojo that works. It's a certain boisterous, loud, okay, kind of fun personality. That doesn't work for everyone, but everybody's got to kind of find their spot. The biggest mistake that photographers make, and so obviously, Ken, I've never seen you work, so I'm not saying that you're making this mistake, but the biggest mistake that photographers make when it comes to getting great expressions out of people is they don't interact with people. They're buried in their equipment, or they're real formal and serious. Where in the world does it say that if you're shooting people's portraits in a corporate setting, you should be formal and serious because they're wearing like suit and tie and that kind of stuff? That's really dumb. You should not be that way. Put yourself in the mindset of the people that you're photographing. They don't really want their picture taken. Nobody's thrilled about getting their picture taken, especially not getting their picture taken at work. They're afraid that the picture's going to look stupid. Then, of course, they're going to get ribbed by, their cohorts at work, all that kind of stuff. So, really what you got to do is you got to talk to people, treat them like human beings, put them at ease. But you got to talk. When I shoot, and especially when I'm doing like a corporate setting like that, literally it's like verbal diarrhea, nonstop. I'm just talking. I'm talking out loud. Even when I do have to do technical stuff, if I hit a hiccup and I've got to worry about something that's going on with the camera, or I can't get a light to work, I'm talking and I'm telling people, it's like, what the heck? That's not supposed to happen. Jeez, and I'll tell them, like, let me see if I can adjust this down. Let me see if I can adjust it up. I'm not going to do it like I'm sounding stressed. I'm not going to do it like I'm not sure what to do. Maybe let's try this. No. I'm going to talk confidently. Like, okay, that shouldn't happen, but let's go ahead and we'll set it this way and it's going to look great. Perfect, boom, I'm going to talk, but I'm going to keep talking and I'll fill them in because at the same time, if you're running around frantically scrambling, playing with lights and camera stuff, and people can tell from your body language, it's not going well. But you're like asking about their kids at the same time or talking about a vacation that you went on, that doesn't mix. You're not going to hide the reality of what's happening. So, on those situations where something goes wrong, it goes wrong. I'm going to tell them, but I'm going to tell them, don't sweat it. I got this. I got a million ways to back this up. We got it. We're going to work through it. And then I'll go about having a conversation with them. But honestly, sincerely, it is that easy. It takes practice. You've just got to develop your ability to, kind of build a repertoire with people. That's really the key. And it's not something that you can read in a book, gang. It's not something you can learn in a video. It's something that you have to do. Because even if you watched Peter Hurley do it, and then watch me do it, and then watch 6 other photographers do it, none of what they all do is necessarily going to work for you. You've got to do it, period. Okay? Let's see. James Lewis. Lightroom and Portrait Pro have been your tools of choice for many years. I know you say we should use Photoshop to post-process. Actually, I don't say that. I'll give you the specific statement I say in a minute. Who do you recommend for tips and guides? Florin has helped you a lot with some issues. So I'm not going to recommend anybody. You guys missed the point. Okay, you really do. So first of all, James, let's get the quote right. It's the same as everybody says. Joe hates high-speed sync. Joe hates the Sony A9. Joe hates shooting wide open. All that is bullshit. Joe has never said any of those things. The Sony A9 is a freaking amazing camera. It's the idiots that are going to buy it with no idea why they're buying it, except that it's the coolest, newest, greatest, latest. High-speed sync is awesome because it's a convenience tool. But if you're going to use it right, you need to understand what it's really doing. And you should understand how to do it without high-speed sync, because then you really get your money's worth out of the feature. Same with shooting wide open. Shooting wide open is really cool, but, Peyton Weirdaker, who am I? Well, dude, if you don't know who I am, I don't know why you just don't go somewhere else, because, that's pretty stupid. Why would you sit here if you don't know who I am? So here's the thing, James. I've never said that you should use Photoshop to post-process. I've said that you use Photoshop if you were going to go beyond color correction, contrast, split toning, hues of saturation, layers, cropping, etc. If you're going to get into the point where you're doing actual retouching on a person, where you're going to do liquefy, you're going to change their shape, you want to do frequency separation, all that stuff, you can't do that in Lightroom. You can't do that in Portrait Pro. Not well. So you use Photoshop. All right. So that being said, the second part of your question, Florin is very good. Aaron Nace, he's awesome. But I'm going to push back like I frequently do and tell you, don't be lazy and ask people who they should watch, who you should watch. Go watch a bunch. Because here's the thing. There are a whole lot more people on YouTube that like to watch Jason Lanier than like to watch Joe Edelman. That's a fact. The numbers prove that. So there are people that prefer the Jason Lanier style. They want to be able to go out and hold a camera 2 feet from their face with one hand in their pocket and shoot a model. And then there are people who like the Joe Edelman style. That's cool. So the key to online learning, it's really finding people that are teaching you things the way that you like to learn, that you can connect with. And that's who you learn from. But here's the thing, and I've been saying this a lot lately, and I hate saying this a lot lately because hopefully you guys understand I really mean it, because in theory, every time I say it, I'm taking money out of my own pocket, okay? A lot of you spend way too damn much time on YouTube. You simply do. You watch more videos about taking pictures and you dream about taking pictures, but you never go take the goddamn pictures. It's really a shame. It's good for me. Great for Jason Lanier. But it's not helping you at all. You can know everything there is to know. And you guys know. There's at least 20 of you in this room right now. I could go down the list and name your names, and you know you're all ridiculously guilty of this. You know more shit shoved into your heads about photography than I do. But yet you still can't shoot the side of a barn if you're standing in front of it. That's a problem. So you got to go out and you got to do it. And I'll tell you right now, James, I've been using Photoshop since 1996, however many years that is. Every time I work on an image, I still experiment with the image. Every single time. To teach myself, to explore. Yeah, do I occasionally watch a video? I do, absolutely. If I see somebody that's got some really cool technique that they've posted a video on, I'll watch it. Do I ever use the technique? Almost never. But what I'll do is I'll take the parts of it that I find to be very useful, the parts of it that can stretch my technique, and I'll go implement those, or I'll try them and see where they settle out. But I will never say, hey, that's a really great technique, and now I'm going to use that technique step 1, step 2, step 3, because nothing in the creative world is step 1, step 2, step 3, ever. That's not creative. That's just following rules. Rules are creativity killers. So the idea of finding somebody to follow, James, absolutely. But the idea of who's the best one, I'm not going to tell you. And honestly, you shouldn't ask that question. You should go check them all out. Do a YouTube search, find out who's doing, tutorials, and check them out. But just because one person says, oh my God, I love this guy, that guy might be great for them. Doesn't mean it's going to be great for you. So you got to go listen. You got to see who do you connect with. And how do you tell if they're good or not? Well, it's real simple. If you can connect with them and you like the way they teach and you understand what they're teaching and you take what they're teaching you and you go use it and it works, hey, they're good. It's that simple, okay? All right, next up, Steven. I do a lot of motorsport photography and I get access to the grid and the pit lane. When I take a photo of a driver in their car or by their car, would you class that as a portrait shot? It's just that I have seconds to get the shot, so it's not set up. No, it's not really a portrait. If we go to the dictionary and we look up the word portrait, 10 to 1, Crystal Allen, I will definitely take Super Chat. That's why it says that right there on the screen. I will totally take Super Chat. Absolutely. Okay? And guys, full disclosure, I get it. Change is painful for people. The reason why I'm not taking questions off the chat is simple. All right? So here, I share with you guys completely honestly. You guys know that I had my buddy Chad, who was monitoring the chat, and he was grabbing the questions and putting them in. Well, Chad's a good kid, but I can't ask Chad to do that for free. So, I was paying Chad $10 an hour, which on the average was $15 at TogChat, to do that, okay? And while that's not a lot of money, I also don't make that much money on TogChat. Yeah, some nights, if you guys have been here, I might actually make $30. Google takes a third of that. So out of that $30, that's $20. Chad gets 15 of it. I made $5 for doing TogChat that night, right? So this new system, it's real simple. Like literally, I'm looking at a spreadsheet. So here, just so you guys don't think like I'm, gaming you here, I want to make sure you can see this, okay? So when you guys give me a question, let me go over to desktop view. There, see, when you guys give me a question, it pops up on a spreadsheet, okay? So it's just like super, super, super simple for me to do it this way. And plus, and I know this is disappointing to some of you, I know some of you have been here where people have gotten stupid in the chat room and they go off on a tangent, and then Joe goes on a rant because I really hate it when people are just being idiots. But that's not helping anybody when I go off on a rant, gang. So that's why that part's not happening at this point. Okay, so I will take care of super chats, but actually right at the moment, now that I did all that for you guys, bear with me 1 second. I've got to get the chat back up because I lost the chat window. So, but at least now you guys know why I am doing it. I'm not doing it to be difficult. I'm simply doing it to try and streamline things and make sure that I get more of your questions and I don't miss them and they're organized, and also save myself a couple bucks. Okay. So, Suad, what is your opinion on UV filters, the protection for the front of the lens? Would you rather have a lens hood? I would rather use both. I do. I'm still really old school in that, SWAT. I use UV filters and I use lens hoods wherever possible, okay? Roderick, I watched your video about white background shooting technique that you posted a few days ago. If you don't have a large enough softbox, would putting light behind a white seamless work? If it's like white seamless paper, Roderick, probably not, because they're actually pretty thick. What I would do if you're looking to do something like that is literally hang a sheet. Go to Walmart or a discount store and get like a white bed sheet and hang the white bed sheet and put a light behind that. That'd work, absolutely, okay? Now keep in mind, since there's no diffuser, in other words, it's just the white bed sheet, the closer you have your light source to the bed sheet, the more of a hot spot you're gonna get. But it's okay, just like I showed in the video, if you're using the blinky feature to set your exposure, you just wanna make sure that you've got the whole screen blinking white. But, so in a perfect world, if you use just like the bedsheet scenario, try and get that light back at least at a minimum 4 feet. And this would be the same for speed light or a strobe, okay? Try and get it back at least 4 feet, like 6 feet to be even better if you have that much running space. But if you're in a situation where you've got to be able to put your strobe like 1 or 2 feet right behind it, you can try it. It's just that you're definitely going to have a hot spot. But white seamless paper is going to be too thick, and white vinyl would definitely be too thick. If you're going to do those, that's when you need to go to the two lights on either side, and basically front lighted is going to be the way to go. Actually, Trevor Rao just said white shower curtain, same thing, and that's, yeah, excellent idea. You can get the white shower curtains that are kind of like almost like a white diffusion material. They'd be perfect. So Esben, for the cola budget, thank you, sir. Greatly appreciated. Okay. Yeah, that would be my advice on that one, Roderick. Okay. Doug Thompson, how often should you change your photos on your website? Or do you have to update it all? Well, Doug says, I know you have a lot of time on your hands, like daily, man. Like really, you should change them every day. There's no set rule. I think if you probably ask 10 professional photographers, you'll get 10 completely different answers. The way I like to look at it is when you get bored of the pictures, everybody else is bored of the pictures, okay? The biggest mistake that a new/young photographer makes with the pictures on their website is they go out and they do a shoot. Oh my God, it's the best thing ever. And I got to put it on the website. It's usually not the best thing ever. So I am a big fan of let the photo breathe for a while. Let it have some life. Make sure that you've looked at it for a couple of weeks and like, yeah, this is really top-notch work. Now it goes on the website, okay? Or if you're one of those people that just can't help yourself and the minute you finish an image, obviously it's your latest image. So just like my quote, your best shot is your next shot. So this is your best shot and you have to get it on the website. At least make it a point every couple of weeks to sit down with a clear mind and go through your website and edit. In other words, remove pictures. And that way you're going to take another look at it a couple weeks later with the idea of, is it still that good? And if it's still that good, it stays. If it's not, it had its run, you take it off. So the most important thing though, Doug, is just keep it fresh. That doesn't mean you're going to replace all the pictures, every so often. You've got to kind of look at, is this what I'm doing? Is this what I'm offering? The one thing none of you want to do, don't think that people are coming back to your website like every 3 days looking for new pictures. Nobody cares. I think it was Ted Forbes, Art of Photography, did that video about nobody cares about your photography. It's very true. Nobody cares about your photography. You're the only person that cares. So, in that sense, don't think like, oh my God, I've got to make sure my fans, because how often do you see me post new pictures? Not that often, because I'm not shooting like I used to shoot where I'm doing beauty shots 3, 4, 5 times a week. I shoot for video now. And that's okay. I'm teaching. So, I don't feel the pressure to post new pictures every other day. I just don't. And young photographers tend to kind of self-pressure themselves with that idea. Like, I got to keep posting new stuff. The only people that are looking at that new stuff are your competitors. And most of the time, these competitors are in your head because they're on social media. They're not really competitors. And it's kind of like that question that I had earlier for Thomas, with his smoke bomb picture, okay? So yeah, don't let yourself fall into that trap. Steve McCarthy, harsh shadows during a portrait session. Oh, never good. I got rushed during a recent portrait session. Oh, Steven, you're setting yourself up for one of my big soundbite answers here. I got rushed during a recent portrait session as the family was late and I did not have time to set up my 2 speed lights correctly. It was too windy. Whoops, I lost it. Oh, too windy. So I went with small stove end diffusers. Those are those little tiny white things. We were rushing to get some shady shots before running out to the beach for sunset. I checked the photos for focus, but did not see the husband casting harsh shadows across the wife. I primarily use Lightroom. I have Photoshop Elements, but have never used it. As more of a novice in the editing phase, this is something that I have never come across. What is the best way to take these images and remove the shadows from the waist, face, and clothing? By the way, these are the only photos that all the grandmothers got in, so I would really like to fix these. Everything else came out fine. Hope me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Steve, so here's the thing. I have to lecture you first, and then let me see if I can help you. You didn't get rushed. You rushed. You felt rushed because you didn't plan properly. Because when things went south, you panicked. But I'm confident, Steve, that no one in these families was holding a gun to your head, threatening to pull the trigger if you didn't get your ass in gear and get every single one of these pictures, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? So first and foremost, learn from this thing. So secondly, if you're in a situation where you have not progressed beyond Lightroom, you're screwed with your own skills. Done. And the reality of it is, let's be fair, I want to make this clear. You're probably screwed with your own skills, period. Meaning, you're describing harsh shadows from low sun and a person blocking it. That's just going to be nasty as hell, period. So the problem of it is unless you are really advanced at retouching, you're not going to fix it. So now the key words were in that sentence. Really advanced at retouching. Who is really advanced at retouching? Retouchers. So do a Google search and look for retouchers. Or, Steve, I think you're a member of my Facebook group. There is a gentleman who is a member of my Facebook group. His name is Sahin, S-A-H-I-N. Look Sahin up in the group or message me and I will gladly give you Sahin's contact information. Sahin runs a company in India called clippingpathland.com. He does all of my base retouching. I no longer do my base retouching. I shouldn't say ever, but rarely. I just don't have the time. And I have no qualms about sending my images overseas to have the blemishes done, have the skin cleaned up. I'm going to do all the finishing. I'm going to do my dodging and burning. I'm going to do my skin finishing, which I hardly ever use frequency separation, but nonetheless, I'm going to do all that stuff. I'm going to do my final color toning. But all the tedious work, I send that overseas and I pay a couple bucks per image. If you're one of those people that has a big issue with sending work offshore, you're going to pay more here in the U.S. But certainly you can get retouchers here in the U.S. But in this case, your penance for your mistake is open up your wallet and pay a retoucher and get the images fixed. But understand, retouchers, there's only so much they can do before something's going to look really, really bad. So without seeing your image, I can't really give you a clear evaluation, but definitely go with a retoucher. That's your best plan. It will cost you less to pay a retoucher, even an American-based retoucher, than it will the amount of time it will take you to get a subpar result given your lack of skills. Okay? James Lewis, it's cheap alternative to Photoshop for only $49. What is your view of Affinity Photo software? Affinity Photo software is not a cheap alternative to Photoshop. It's a cheap alternative to Lightroom. It's a cheap alternative to Capture One Pro. It doesn't do layers, liquefy, that kind of stuff. It's basically a raw processor. In fact, if I'm not mistaken here, let me go back to a browser. I pulled it up right before we went online. I saw this stuff a couple months ago, didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. So it's raw editing, works in any color space. It'll output to a PSD if you want to, works on Windows and Mac. So all the stuff that it's doing here, Microsoft, yeah, this is a raw processor. In fact, there we go, dedicated raw editing workspace. How do I feel about this? And I've never used it. So full disclosure, I've never used the software. I want to be really clear. In my opinion, it's a great program for amateurs. Now I know I've just pissed off whoever's involved with Affinity, photo software. But look, here's the deal. Okay, there are a lot of benefits to using Lightroom and Photoshop. Number one, all the Adobe Creative Cloud products interact. As you progress with your skills, you are going to be able to create essentially libraries. Let's say you're working with a logo, for instance. You could build the logo in Illustrator and then be using it in a Photoshop design. If you go into Illustrator and you edit that logo file because you want to make a tweet, it automatically updates it into Photoshop, etc. So, the thing you have to understand about Photoshop is it's really part of a system, hence the Creative Cloud. All of these pieces of software interact. So, if you only need to do some little tweaks, then it'd be fine. But it's pretty much a standalone. It's out there all by itself. It interacts via the file formats, but in all honesty, why would you work with one program that's got a user interface that works one way and one set of naming conventions, and then go to another program with a different kind of interface, a different kind of set of naming conventions to do other work? Like, to me, that makes no sense. There's a harsh reality. And you have to find the balance, because I'm going to kind of contradict myself here. The harsh reality is you get what you pay for, period. I would rather work with the system with the software that is part of a system, okay? There's just so much more that I can do with it. But, so I would call this beginner software, period, okay? So Tony Keeble, what is the best modifier to use for equal light over the full length of a model? I'm currently using a Yangwano speedlight with reflective and shoot-through umbrellas, and I find that I'm getting bright spots of light. Currently trying to understand the inverse square law and try moving the lights further away so the fall-off isn't as great, but you still seem to get that brighter area. Yeah. Basically, bigger is better. That's the honest answer that I'll give you, Tony. If you want even light across your whole subject, get a light source that's as big as your subject. That's the easiest way to guarantee it. Or make a light source that's as big as your subject. You could, do a DIY diffusion panel, etc. If you are getting hotspots currently, you're getting it for a couple of different reasons. And this is based on the idea that you moved your light sources away from your subject. So that's good. You're using the inverse square law. You're moving things away. I'm sure that minimized them, but as you say, you still get them. So if you're using reflective umbrellas with silver and gold in them, yeah, you're going to get hot spots for sure. Because unfortunately the speed lights have a very small light source. So even though the light is going to fill out and hit that whole umbrella, it's going to be hotter in the middle, period, okay? That being said, yeah, just go to a bigger light source, or use two. Like you could stack two shoot-through umbrellas, top to bottom, back them up, and you're going to get more even light. You notice I'm trying to be really cautious about saying buy this brand, because here's the thing, Tony, I'll take, if you look at the video that I just posted this past week about using the Octodome with a softbox as a background. So when I use the softbox, I use that PhotoFlex medium size softbox. So it's 24 inches by 32 inches. That's not that big. I'll light a person full length of that picture with that softbox, no problem. Takes a little practice, but there's really no special technique. So please don't ask me, hey, will you make a video on how to do that? No. Go watch my egg video and then go practice the softbox, okay? But part of why I like that particular softbox is it's got a baffle in it, so you don't get a hot spot. Even if you're working really close, you're not going to get a hot spot. So the key to doing the full-length lighting is back the light up. But understand that that comes at a cost. Because it's only a medium-sized softbox, as you back it up, it appears smaller, okay? So really the first key is practice. That's the key. Jim Mazzone, if you're starting a business, what paperwork do you need? S-Corp, DBA, what insurance do you need? All the above. I'm not going to answer that question, Jim, only because there's so many options. You should talk to an accountant first. And if you are fearful in terms of being a litigious person, talk to an attorney. Don't take your advice from some guy on YouTube, ever, okay? I don't work as a DBA, I don't work as an S-Corp, I literally work as a sole proprietor. I keep it simple, which a lot of people would argue is really stupid. I've done that my whole life. I don't want to deal with all the additional filings and bullshit stuff. That's my preference. For insurance, I have equipment insurance, I have liability insurance. That's it. Those are the things that I deal with. But I would not take that advice. I would start with an accountant, okay? That way they're going to get you set up in terms of what you should be doing with, from a corporate standpoint, from a structuring standpoint, how they want to file the taxes, etc. That's part of why you pay an accountant, because they're going to give you the best advice in terms of how you're going to save yourself the most money in taxes, all that stuff. And then from there, that's really going to dictate what kind of insurances you're going to need, because different methods of structuring your business also require different kinds of insurances in some states. So I don't want to answer that here. That is not really going to be of any use to anyone, okay? So Brett Anderson, in a few recent photo reviews, including his, you mentioned that the subject's body language indicated they were uncomfortable. Yes. What can a photographer do to help make the experience more relaxing? Same thing as I was telling to Ken earlier, Brett. You got to learn to pay attention to your subjects. That's pause, because I could go on a rant there. Not at you, Brett, but in general. There are so many photographers, and there's so many in my group, okay, that are trying to photograph people, and the reason why their pictures are not working out and they're not getting the quality of the images as they want is because they're spending so much time and effort on their gear that they essentially ignore their subjects. So, there's a simple premise. What is that thing we learned from the Bible? I'm not religious. I'll admit that. I'm not a religious person. Okay, so I'm not saying this to, cause any divides here, but I'm just being honest. Tony Keeble, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate that. But there's a Bible passage, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? Well, that's a good life value. So forget the Bible. That's a good life value. That's honestly my working philosophy when I'm dealing with a subject. Like, put myself in their shoes. How am I going to feel? I know you guys would have a hard time imagining this, but I hate having my picture taken. I hate being in front of a camera. Getting to the point where I started doing this YouTube stuff was having to overcome this big hurdle. So, taking that aside, because now, like, whatever, I'll get in front of the camera and do any kind of stupid thing. But the guy prior to YouTube, I hate being in front of a camera. So the point is, like, for me, I would just make it a point to remember that when I was getting ready to photograph someone, in the sense that, how do I feel? What can I do to put them at ease? Okay. And understand, and I talk about this a lot, it is in some of my videos, pose is a 4-letter word. Just like smile should be a 4-letter word. Think about that, because it's really 5. So I'm going to spell it S-M-I-L with a happy face. 4 letters. There's a whole lot of science. If you say the word smile to someone, you could say it 10 times. You'll get exactly the same smile each time you take their picture. And it's not a genuine smile. In fact, in the science world, it is a smile that is referred to as the Duquesne smile. It's one of the 7 prototype expressions that your brain recognizes subconsciously, which means to you, they're boring. As far as the word pose, if you say pose to somebody, it tends to connotate don't move, stiff. So those are negative things to say. So just if you mention that, even in conversation where you're saying to a model, it's like, okay, so for this next pose, I want to have this, boom, you said the word. You've indicated don't move. Now, recently, there were a bunch of images that I reviewed in the group where, unfortunately, we were putting young women into very seductive situations and sadly making them look like they were scared to death. Which, to me, even to look at a picture like that makes me feel like some dirty old man. I mean, guys, I shoot fine art nudes. I like a naked woman just like the next guy, but I do not like a naked woman that looks scared or uncomfortable. That's inappropriate. If I'm going to photograph somebody in a sexy or seductive way, they need to look confident. They need to look like they're having fun. They need to look like they are making a conscious choice to do what they're doing, not like I have forced them into that situation. So that's not just body language, but it's even, and I know a lot of you saw the rant that I did in the Facebook group the other day about the one photo. You know, on top of all the problems that the picture had, the shot was looking down on her, which even further diminishes her as she's all hunched up and covering. It's just, oh. Like I literally, and I know, you know, the salvation in that particular picture that we're talking about is the photographer meant no harm. The guy's busting his ass to learn, but it is something you have to learn. But honestly, Brett, there's no textbook, there's no video. I do have some videos that are coming out this summer where I'm going to try and at least try and break it down a little bit more, but it's kind of the same as I was talking about, like Hurleyisms before and finding your mojo. If I tell you, say this, do this, say this, and you go do it, it's going to sound stupid. And it's going to make the person uncomfortable. You know, it's about sincerity. If you're putting your subject's comfort first, and if you're finding a way to connect with that person and direct them in a way that they understand. Another thing I see frequently, you know, guys like my age, working with models. And this happened not that long ago at a workshop that I was at. And the guy starts saying to the model, he's like, I want you to have that look like Greta Garbo has in some movie. And he mentions some movie. And I'm standing there and I'm looking at him. And I looked at the girl. And I looked back at him. And I stopped him. I said, wait, before we take the picture. And I kind of held my hand up in front of his lens. And I leaned into the girl and I said, hey, do you know who he's talking about? And she laughed and she's like, no. I'm like, so like, you know, connecting with people doesn't mean connecting in your mind, connecting in their mind. So, you know, it means you got to pay attention to people is really what it comes down to. Hence psychology, gang. It's got nothing to do with photography. That's why you guys hear me go off the deep end when you all get so caught up in stupidity and minutia over gear. If you're going to photograph people, pay attention to the goddamn people. That's the most important part. It's totally the most important part. I'm going to be in Boston this weekend. I'm photographing a model. Juicy, thank you so much. I appreciate the super chat. I'm going to be photographing a model in a hotel room to show a video for you guys. Okay? And I'm going to work all with the shittiest lighting I can find. I'm not taking any lighting. So I'm going to work strictly with, you know, the light that's available in the hotel room to do this kind of boudoir session. And so I am going to record long enough pieces of it Initially, I'm going to show it to my Patreon folks so that they can kind of see some of the start to finish of how I did the whole shoot. But I'm working on a series of videos where I can try and give you guys at least a little better sense, but it's really all it is. It's pay attention to people and treat people the way that you would want to be treated. You know, if let's say you're photographing a girl in lingerie laying on a bed, answer one simple question. How would you feel if you were wearing that piece of lingerie laying on a bed? Treat her accordingly. Make her feel comfortable. And you'll have a great set of pictures. Okay? Let's see here. Robert Bechtel. He's offering his services at a team building event at work. Green screen shots as part of an after hours party. Any tips on the best way to handle the background to make it easy to do the composite work? I understand a true green backdrop can cause a color cast issue. Yeah, well, I mean, Robert, first of all, you don't have to do it on green, okay? You could do it on gray. You could do it on white. Depends on what kind of background you're going to put in. So the first thing I would say to you is, what background's going in? Does the background that's going in have like a dominant color? In which case you could like do gray and gel it, that color. If you're going to do green screen, you need to keep, the best thing to do, easiest thing to do is keep your subject as far away from it as possible. That way the light's not going to kick forward. But yes, green screen, but trust me, I shoot my videos. Anytime you guys see me in that white studio, where it's just the white studio background, it's a green screen. If you go back and you watch the zombie video from Christmas time, you see it, the green screen, and you see the white background. Green screens, bitch, I literally spent about 2 days setting up the lighting for that green screen when I first set it up. And the light for that green screen is permanently mounted. I never move it. It never comes down. It never goes away. And I literally actually used an iPhone app to, Steve L, thank you so much. I use an iPhone app that allows me to measure the luminances across the green screen to see how well balanced it is so that I could get it just right, because I didn't want to have to do a lot of post-production on the green screen. So the nice part of it is I shoot my stand-ups on that green screen, and when I go into Final Cut, one click and poof, I've got perfect masking on the green screen. But that's because I did all the work on the front end to make sure that that green screen is perfectly lit. There's no spill, there's nothing. The only issue I have with the green screen, and a lot of you have probably never noticed it, some of you may have, I wear glasses. My glasses have very shiny frames, but if you look really close, and anybody that gets close to me in real life notices this, and they're like, what's up with your glasses? I have gaffer's tape on the side of my glasses, because if I don't do that gaffer's tape when I'm on the green screen, it gets so bright where the arms of the glasses reflect, it's really, really hard to mask using the keying tools in Final Cut. So I just leave it on there all the time. So I walk around with, 2 pieces of gaffer tape on my glasses. Next time I buy glasses, I'll get matte frames. But all right, let's get one more question. Oh, here's a deep one. Okay, so Jean-Edward Calvino, thinking back in your photography career, if you could change something, what would that be? Wow. Do I just get to change one thing? Can it be like a whole lot of things? One of the upsides, downsides for me is I've never been afraid of making mistakes, which means I've made a boatload of mistakes, right? Gosh, John, I think if I could change one thing, I think I would go back to when I was 21 years old. And I would change how much I appreciated how lucky I was to be a photographer. Because I took it for granted. I was very fortunate as a teenager. I won a bunch of awards. I got a lot of attention. It kind of the photography stuff came easy to me. And literally, I walked out of high school and started a job as a chief photographer in a newspaper, 22,000 daily circulation. I was on top of the world. And I loved what I did, but I didn't appreciate what I did. I didn't understand how fortunate I was for doing that. And I got married when I was 20 years old, which was really kind of stupid, but I have a great son as a result of that. By the time I was 21, at my newspaper that I worked at, I was really pretty much a diva. I was a total prima donna. And I don't, Studio Photo Gem. Gemma, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. I say that with shame. I want to be really clear. I'm not proud of that fact. I regret that. I regret that the gentleman who was the editor of the newspaper, he became the editor after I was hired. He had originally been the sports editor of the newspaper, and he put up with me a lot longer than he should have. So I know that in the end it was really difficult for him, but he finally did me a big favor, and he fired me. I got fired from that job because I was an idiot. I just was absolutely an idiot. I thought that I knew better than anybody else, and just stupid youthful stuff. It was a great wake-up call. I mean, so on one hand, I needed it in my life at that point, but I wish I could go back to a year before that and realize how fortunate I was. My first love in photography was and always will be photojournalism. If it were possible to make money today, good money as a photojournalist, without having to travel around the world to the worst places in the world and the most dangerous places, sorry guys, I wouldn't be here on YouTube. I would go back to photojournalism in a heartbeat. But the world's changed and the industry has changed. So I love what I'm doing, and that's it. But so Jean, I think that would be it. I'd love to go back to 21 and appreciate how fortunate I was, so that I would change my behavior, because that's an event in my life that I'm very, very much embarrassed by. And I like the guy. Like, to this day, we're friends on Facebook, the editor who fired me. I don't converse with him that much. I see him maybe once every 5 years somewhere. But I always feel like I owe him a big apology, even though he's the one that fired me. Because I know he tolerated me for a lot longer than he should have. And so, so there you have it. Okay? All right, gang. So listen, I am going to say goodnight. So just a reminder, I will not be here tomorrow night for a Thursday night TogChat. I'm going to be traveling for the weekend. It's a holiday here in the U.S. It's Memorial Day weekend. So for those of you that are in the U.S. and are going to be celebrating Memorial Day, please have an awesome weekend and take pictures. Get out there. Use that camera. I will be back here Monday night. Even though Monday is the holiday, Memorial Day, I'm going to be here on Monday for a TogChat episode. So, if you have plans, as long as you have a camera in your hand, good luck. Go do your plans and have a great time. But TogChat from this point forward will be every Monday night. And I promise you, it's going to be action-packed. I'm going to load it up with stuff so that you'll still get your weekly dose. For those of you that are members of my Facebook group, the good news here is I'm also going to start doing one live chat a week in the Facebook group, which I stopped doing for a while. It'll be random. I'm not going to make it a scheduled thing, but you have my word. At least once a week, and I've been in there this week twice. At least once a week, I will do some photo reviews in the Facebook group. So if you're not a member of the Facebook group, gang, you really should check it out. It's a very different kind of Facebook group. The link is in the description below, so please do consider joining. And also, it's worth noting that, if you are able to, check out Patreon. You can support what I'm doing on Patreon for as little as $1 per month. That's like $12 a year, and it gets you full access to everything that we're doing there, okay? So until next time, gang, thank you all for taking the time to come out tonight, spend the evening with me. As always, I really, really appreciate it. Mitch, sorry that I got off to a slow start for you, man, but I hope the rest of it was good. And gang, you know the drill. Please remember these words. Thanks for watching another live episode of TogChat. Now go pick up that camera and shoot something, because your best shot, it's your next shot. So keep learning, keep thinking, and keep shooting. Adios.